All right, okay, I think we're back I think we're live on YouTube again. Helena, Mercy can come back. Okay, sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties with the YouTube link. But I think Helena will share screen right now, and we have this quick slideshow.
If you could just send out the new link and spread the word if you can, that'd be great.
Okay, so what is Central America Youth Organization, Helena?
So just a little bit about us. We are.
Yeah. I can't, all I see is video was interrupted. And then it goes back to the video from the other debate.
Wait, I think there's a lag of like 15 seconds after we go live here until it shows on YouTube. So we're just gonna continue and see if it works.
Okay.
It's just a slight delay, but it should be showing up.
Okay. So Helena, you can continue.
Okay, so just a little bit about our organization. We are a completely youth-led organization, and the core goal of our organization is to empower youth, make a change, and to teach them the importance of giving back to their community by staying active in our neighborhood and organizing community, social, and volunteering events such as this one to bring families in our community closer.
And so we start out as doing a monthly Clean Hill walk of picking up trash around our community. And as we continually done the event and seen good results, our organization has been growing since. We've moved on to bigger events like partnering with the CV Sanitation Organization and Alameda County Food Bank to broaden our impacts, as well as work on community beautification projects. And we've beautified over 40 acres of land. And Marissa's going to explain some of our formatting for this debate.
Oh, okay. So, sorry. We're starting with opening statements where each candidate will have a minute to briefly introduce themselves and give their overall message to the audience. And then we're going to move on to the debate and discussion part of our event, where each candidate has 45 seconds to answer the same question. And then we'll give them the opportunity to respond on and comment on anybody's answers using the virtual hand function. And they will each have 30 seconds max to do so. And then we'll move on to closing statements, where each candidate has a minute to wrap up and say any last words. For the rules, we ask that everyone please remain muted when it's not their turn to speak, and we're going to use a colored background to indicate we have someone in charge of that with a colored background to indicate how much time they have left. Green, so they know when to begin. Yellow, meaning they have 15 seconds left, and red for time is up. And if they continue to go over the time limit, we'll just mute them. And each topic will be introduced with a question, and then each candidate, as I said, has 45 seconds to reply, and then there'll be a chance for them to respond and add on. And by the end of this, it should last around 90 minutes.
So the main topics we will be covering in today's debate is roles and responsibility questions, academic program questions, California wildfires, diversity, COVID-19, and any questions the audience may have.
And here's a quick disclaimer. This event is not designated and not designed to create any conflict, and it's merely an exchange of ideas so the audience can learn more about your ideas personally. If problems do occur, we will end the round early so no conflicts escalate. And we'd just like to introduce the candidates. Dolly Adams, you can turn off your camera and wave.
I can't get on.
Oh, now she's gone. Oh, no.
All right, Helena, can you stop screen sharing for a sec?
No.
She was on.
Dolly Adams. You can just wave. And then we also have Monica Lee. Lavender Whittaker. Sharon Parker. Sarah Rainman, and in place of Mike Kuziak, who unfortunately couldn't make it here today. And Christy Ruiz. And so let's get on with it. I think Marissa, you have the first question. And the order that the candidates will be speaking today is in this order. So first will be Monica Lee, then Christy, then Dolly, Sarah, Lavender, and then Sharon Parker.
Okay, well, let's start with the first question. I can also type it in the chat once I say it. It's an academic program question starting with Monica. What are school board's plans on helping students succeed in and beyond the classroom? Starting with Monica.
When you say succeed in beyond the classroom, what do you mean? Do you mean in terms of like the distance learning or?
Yeah, distance learning.
Graduate? Okay. In terms of distance learning, our plans have been to have the synchronous learning or the in-person instructions in the morning, and then the asynchronous or video learning in the afternoon. The superintendent had a plan or has a plan where every student should have received a Chromebook. And hopefully if there's anybody whose child hasn't received one or a student who hasn't received one, they'll contact their home school and let them know. Also, students who need it should get a Wi-Fi device if they don't have home Wi-Fi. We also, I think each school has time for students to come in and pick up books. We're working on coming up with learning hubs so that students who need extra support can get it, and also maybe hopefully at some point have some kind of in-person academic support as well.
Thank you. Now for Christy Rowards, same question. What are school boards planning on helping? What are school boards doing to plan and help students succeed beyond the classroom?
First, I wanted to thank you guys for having me this evening, and I want to applaud you for your dedication and your professionalism in planning this event so that the community can get to know us better. I think that the district has been working extremely hard on trying to figure out in this challenging time how to best serve our students. They have been serving parents, they have been serving teachers, and they've been serving the community as what approach should be best. Currently, they do have two options. The first option was to do 100% virtual model for students that may not feel comfortable at any time this year to return to school. And then the other model is the hybrid model.
Thank you. Now for Dolly Adams, how can we improve this in the school board to help students succeed beyond the classroom?
Well, if this is a question about distance learning, that's one thing. Otherwise, it might be about sports, music, art, that kind of thing, extracurricular activities beyond school. But I'll answer this really as distance learning. There's a time when most students are meeting with their teachers, usually via Zoom class or Google Meet, and that is how they're receiving their their instruction in their classroom. And then there's this asynchronous time where students have either videos or questions or books or projects or other sorts of things that follow up from the instruction that they have. As you know, not all kids, though, learn well on a computer. And some kids are going to need to move to the blended learning much sooner.
Okay, next is Sarah Raymond. How can we improve school beyond the classroom?
Okay, I'd love to turn on my video, but I've been told that the host has stopped it. So if you guys could turn on my video, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so I'm standing in for Mike Kuziak. He's unavailable to attend tonight due to attending his mother's funeral in Florida. I believe that if Mike were here, he would say that the school board's responsibility to its students is to create a really, really strong, resilient community and system that supports all of its learners, including special ed students, ELL students, and kids who are probably having a lot of trouble right now bridging the digital divide. So there are a lot of equity issues that our schools do need to address within the community, and he would like to be doing that, for instance. I'm going to go ahead and stop because I'm so close to the end of that period of time.
Okay, great. Next is Lavender Lee Whittaker. How can the school board improve schooling beyond the classroom?
Thank you, Marissa, and thank you for having me here tonight. I really appreciate you all having this venue to share about us who are running for school board. So beyond the classroom, what we're looking at now in the middle of a global pandemic, we're all facing a lot. And I think as a community, there are a few different things that we need to think about. We need to think about technology, which is the Chromebooks that we've given to every single student, the MiFis that we've given to students who don't have access to internet, and then looking at how do we ensure we're going to have learning loss. Things aren't the same. We're behind altogether, all of us. And then the opportunity gap. How do we ensure equity across special education, students of color, lower socioeconomic class? I think that we also need to support people with social and emotional supports. So I think we have a lot of work to do, and you know, our families are facing a lot, and we want to help everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Lastly, we have Sharon Parker. What can the school board do to improve schooling outside of the classroom?
Well, my concern is that children in various situations are able to receive the highest form of help that they need during these trying times. I really like the having the options that those who prefer to teach their children at home via Zoom can take that choice. But those that would prefer to have a hybrid form of education, that is open to them. I also feel that parents should have as much information available to them regarding the choices that they have to make during these times. I just believe that also if the schools can provide as much extracurricular activities, you know, wearing masks, doing
All right, okay, so we're gonna give you guys an opportunity if you want to respond to anyone else's statements. We'll see your hand and we'll let you on. Okay, first I see Sarah.
Yes, so just very briefly, This is just a general response, and I think it's really important, and I believe Mike would say the same thing if he were here today, that we need to be thinking not just about what's happening this school year. Obviously, what's happening this school year is really important, but I think the biggest gift that the district can be giving to its students and families right now is a sense of grounding, is a sense of community, and especially to bridge the gap right now between what's being offered to all students generally and making sure that there is access to education for our special ed students, especially for our English learners. That I think is probably the most important thing that we could be doing from an educational standpoint for this current school year.
Okay, next I see Christy.
I agree with several of the candidates as that we are in a very challenging time, and
I think you froze. So we'll just move on to our next question. I'm sure a lot of other candidates feel this, or a lot of other viewers feel this way. We really want to know you as people, what you believe in individually. So our next question is, can you tell us something about yourself? Let us get to know you more as people and what you want to fight for. First up, let's start with Dolly.
Hi, so I wanted to thank everybody who's putting this on, and the people who are watching on YouTube, for spending your time trying to know all of us, our candidates, and for the Sunshine Youth organization that's putting this on. Thank you very much. I value education very much, and this is because I actually grew up poor with a single mom. And the only way I saw I was going to get out of that poverty, or that flipping back and forth between poverty and being in the middle class, was from education. And so that's why I value it so much. Thank you.
Okay, next is Sarah. Introduce yourself.
Okay, hi. So again, I am here on behalf of Mike Kuziak, who cannot be with us tonight. He asked me to stand in, and I'm very proud to help. And I think that he would, in answer to this question, want to share with you that his primary goals for the district are both to fix funding issues between the state and our district, address equity and inclusion, support our schools as a source of community resilience, and also to increase transparency and accountability for the district. If there's one thing I can point to that I think really embodies Mike's story, is that it is the CV Stands United Against Hate signs, which you can see in the background here. Mike was the person behind that. He made that happen for Castro Valley and distributed it all around. I think that his huge goal right now is to make sure that every child in our district feels that they have a place here and that their educational needs are being met. And he really wants to make CVUSD be a place where all really will mean all.
Okay, next person, Lavender.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lavender Whitaker. I originally ran for school board. My late husband, Nicholas Dub Whitaker, was a teacher in the Castro Valley Unified School District at Castro Valley High School. He was a social studies teacher and a leadership teacher, and he was going to school at UC Berkeley to get his admin credential for restorative justice. He saw our changing demographics and wanted to ensure that everyone was included, and he cared a lot about this district. Now, I ran to finish what he started. And a little bit about me, I come from lower socioeconomic class. I have been a single parent, and I have worked my way up the ladder in the corporate world, have a business degree, and equity, inclusion, transparency, making smart financial decisions, and helping kids succeed with social and emotional supports are really imperative to me. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Sharon. Introduce yourself. Hey, Sharon, I just asked to unmute you. We can't hear you right now because you're muted.
Okay, I got it. So nobody heard me, right? Okay, I'm Sharon Parker, and I've been a Castro Valley resident for 45 years. My husband and I raised 2 daughters here, and I have a love for children. I've been a teacher for 33 years. I've taught in Castro Valley, San Leandro, Hayward, Oakland schools. And I've had experience with all cultures, all ethnicities, religions, and with not only with the children, but with the parents. I've had interaction with them. And my desire is just for each child to reach his fullest potential, regardless of his background. And I look forward to working with other school board members in making these goals a reality. I also am interested in making sure that all of the finances are directed to the sources that they were.
Okay, next up is Monica. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Monica Lee. I am currently a trustee and vice president of the school board. I come from, excuse me. I should thank you guys for organizing this. You did such a great job last time. I have been an advocate of education pretty much from birth. My mother was a teacher, several aunts and uncles were teachers. My parents came up in the segregated South when education was one of the few occupations people of color, African Americans, could get into. So my whole life, my parents have stressed the value of a good education and working towards that. So I want to pay it forward by continuing to serve on the school board and helping to instill in students and ensure the students in Castro Valley have the best education that the board can provide.
Awesome, awesome. And then finally, Christy, you can introduce yourself.
I can't see the clock. Are you there?
I think Maya's working on it. I can show a clock.
Okay.
Oh, she's
Okay.
back.
All right. Okay. I just want to make sure that I stay within the rules. Okay. Tell me when you're ready.
Whenever you're ready, Christy.
Okay. Hi, my name's Christy Duman Wirtz, and I started teaching in Castro Valley in 1989, and I've dedicated my entire professional career to the students in Castro Valley, and I'm looking to go onto the board to continue that contribution. I think that it's important to have a unique viewpoint from a teacher, and I think that that can benefit the board immensely. I think I have a unique perspective. I have been a program specialist and also a teacher, along with I've provided training for the district staff. I've lived in Castro Valley for over 30 years. I've raised my son in Castro Valley. He attended Castro Valley schools, and I just really want to continue my contribution. My priorities are reading and literacy, and empowering parents, students.
Okay, and then Helena's going to ask the next question.
This question is from a Castro Valley Unified School District parent, and they ask, How will you fix the lack of discipline at the high school, as it often feels like everything, vaping, drugs, is permissible, and only frivolous staff is actually cracked down on? So the first person who will be going is Sarah.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll just point out that neither Mike nor I have a high school student at this point in time. However, what I would say is that Mike is a parent, and he's the only person running currently who has students in the district. I know that safety and comfort at our schools is definitely a big issue for him. It's why he had supported things such as removing SROs from our schools. I'm not, again, I can't speak directly for Mike because he is not here, but I do believe that he supports the idea that a more inclusive environment becomes a more safe and a more open environment in which kids feel more comfortable coming to adults with problems and talking with them about the issues that are presented, and hopefully that would help with some problems that people are expressing concern about in this question.
All right, next up is Lavender Lee Whittaker. How will you fix the lack of discipline at the high school?
So I think this question, when we think about discipline, what we've seen with our data is that disabled and male students of color are disproportionately disciplined. And what we're looking at here is we're looking at restorative justice and really positive interventions. Usually when something is going on with a child, there are reactions. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to have positive interventions and social and emotional supports so that we can really help that kid succeed instead of disciplining them and pushing them farther into a system that will not allow them the opportunity to grow and succeed in our society. I also do not agree. We decided as a district to no longer have SROs. The contract was canceled this year. I think positive interventions and social emotional supports are the way to do it. And we've already seen an increase in positivity from that. Thank you.
Sharon is up next. How will you fix the lack of discipline at the high school? I don't think we can hear you right now. I asked to unmute your microphone.
I'm sorry. Okay, I believe there should be strong and clear guidelines within the administration that the parents are made aware of, and that there should be interaction with the parents so that there is clear communication, and so that the parents know that the school is wants to be positively involved with their student in ways that they can address the situation so that the child is able to become successful in his interactions in the school.
All right, next up we have Monica Lee. How will you fix the lack of discipline at the high school?
I don't have a student in a high school right now, but my son is a 2019 graduate, so I know a little bit about it. As Lavender said, one of the things we've been looking at it on the board is the disparate treatment and how males of color and ESL students are all treated, and trying to make sure we work towards equity and making sure that all students are treated alike. I know Mr. Torpy and the counseling staff. I would work closely with them to address any issues, also see that any students who are having issues are getting the proper support, so that if there's something going on, particularly at home, I mean, I was a guardian for students at one time, that we can try and address those issues to the extent that a school district can, and try and solve any problems that are going on in the high school.
Next up, we have Christy. how will you fix the lack of discipline at the high school?
A few years ago, the district made an adoption for a second step curriculum, which is specifically designed to address social and emotional needs of the students. That program is implemented starting in kindergarten, or actually I think it's TK. That program is designed to develop and support students' social and emotional development. I think that also on the school sites, you have different behavioral modification strategies that are being implemented to support positive reinforcement for the students that where they get some praise for doing what they're supposed to be doing. I also agree with Lavender that that the SROs are needed to be removed, and I'm really happy to see that happened.
Next, we have Dolly Adams. How will you fix the lack of drugs and discipline at the high school?
Okay, so I taught, of course, at Redwood Continuation High School, and we would have lessons on the negative effects of vaping or drugs or cigarettes, alcohol, all of those. Every single year, we did several lessons on that with various different programs with our counselor, Nina. Some other things to mention about that, I would definitely be for removing, of course, the SROs, as have already been done. That does not mean that we're removing people like the campus security, like Leonard Pleasant, who is on both CVHS campus and Redwood. We should not have a school to prison pipeline. That's the reason for getting rid of the SROs. Relationships are so important. When students really connect with the teacher and connect with their school, they're much less likely to be going through discipline issues. And yes, for restorative justice. Thank you.
Now we will move on to the discussion portion. If anyone wants to add on, they can raise their virtual hand. I see Sarah's first.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that, going back to the CV Stands United Against Pain in the back there, equity community building are really a passion of Mike Kuziak. I would really recommend that anything in here, if you wanted to hear from Mike directly, to please visit our website. It's kuziaklancastervalley.com and request, contact us, and we'll set up an opportunity for a virtual town hall with you and any of your friends or kids to talk about this issue.
Sorry, just to clarify with the time, each candidate is given 30 seconds for this part to, just to make sure that we will get to as many questions as we can. Next up, I see Lavender with your hand.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to, in regards to discipline, I just want us to reframe that word when we're thinking about it. Instead of thinking about how do we get someone in trouble, how do we help someone? How do we help our students succeed in our society? So just hoping as a community we can continue to have that conversation and help our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to Marissa for the next question.
I think Marissa's busy right now. The next question is from Christopher Onstad. What work have you done specifically to make all people with disabilities equal to those without disabilities? As you know, disabilities include non-physical limitations as well. For instance, type 1 diabetes is a disability under the ADA law. And first person to start is Lavender.
Hello, Chris. Thank you for your question. Nice to hear from you. You are correct. Disabilities cover a wide spectrum, and we like to think of them more as opportunities. We want to try to be equitable we have an obligation to ensure that our students with disabilities are provided the same and equitable education as all of our other students. And I think it's very important that we continue to talk to our special education families to see how they're doing, working with our teachers to see how they're doing, and making sure that our kids are okay, especially during this time. Thank you.
Okay, next is Sharon Parker.
Yes, I agree with Lavender. I think it's so important to have that, keep that connection with the parents of children who have different disabilities, whatever they may be. And so that you can have input from them regarding the specialists that they're working with that have to do with their children. And just keeping that communication open, I think is so important, so that, that we're aware of the situation and how we can be of service.
Okay, next up, Monica Lee.
Yeah, I think it's important that we treat each of our students as an individual, and that we look at them for what their needs are and how we can best meet them. I know my son had a friend who's a diabetic, and it's been a diabetic since he's probably 8 or 9. And so Redwood High School worked as a better fit for him because of his medical conditions. I think that's one good thing we have in the district. We have some options like Redwood versus Castro Valley High, at least at the high school level. I think it's important that we work with students and families to assess the students individually, and to the best of our abilities, try and accommodate their needs. I think that's it.
Okay. Next up, Christy Welch.
Well, I spent my entire career in special education. I have been a strong advocate for all of the children that we have with special needs in the district. And I think it's really important that starting, at the elementary level, that we're developing a culture in our schools that is inclusive, and that we really are looking whether a child needs a 504 or an IEP to meet their educational needs, that we are doing that effectively. I think that it's very challenging as a special day class teacher and as a program specialist for many years. It's very challenging for the parents, the teachers, and the students to have a good fit and to actually get their educational needs met within the school environment.
All right, awesome. And then next up, Dolly.
Okay, thank you. So I'm currently right now teaching special education. I'm teaching that in San Leandro High School, but I was teaching special ed, of course, before that at Redwood High. I've also been a general ed teacher, so I know also what general ed is about. There's a new phrase really for kids with disabilities. Instead of calling them special ed or with disabilities, there's differently abled. And our kids need that. That provides equity for them. We need to, the district already spends more money on its special ed kids than general ed kids, because that's how you get equity. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Next up is Sarah Raymond.
Okay, should I wait for that timer to reset? Okay, thank you. So Chris, you had specifically asked for examples of things that the candidate done, and I will just say that in the time that I've been part of Mike's campaign committee, starting back in January, I would say one of the issues that came up his attention, a very important one, was how can we as a board really act to help families and children who have special needs, whether those are highly visible or highly invisible ones. And one of the things that he did was reach out to families and sit down with them in virtual town halls to talk about experiences he's been in the district and what he as a board member could do maybe to be helpful. He inspired some community organizing there as well. And I would invite you and anyone else to reach out to us to schedule a similar meeting to hear from him directly on this issue.
Okay, so now we move on to our discussion portion of this topic. And once again, the topic is, what have you done specifically to address people with disabilities or differently abled people? Yeah, so if we see your hand in the chat, you have your opportunity to speak. But if not, Marissa will ask our next question. Oh wait, I think Dolly just raised your hand. You can go ahead whenever you're ready.
So, of course, this is my field of expertise here in having taught for 29 years and for over a decade having been in special ed. Most of the kids I've taught, you couldn't, if you looked at them, you wouldn't know that they were in special education. Most kids who are special ed do not have that. You have kids with schizophrenia, you have kids with diabetes, they could have a number of different disabilities, and you need to be able to take care of all of them. Thank you.
I also see Christy's hand.
As I had said, I spent my entire career in the special education field, and it is imperative to me that all does mean all, and especially with regard to children with special needs, we also have to look at providing them quality programming within the teachers that we are able to recruit and retain. There is a severe shortage.
Okay, thank you. Now we're moving on to our next question.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to start with Sharon Parker, and the next question is from, the next question is, what are the candidates' opinions on charter schools and school vouchers? Go ahead.
Well, I'm in favor of excellent public schools, but I also believe there should be the options of charter schools and vouchers. I believe that the needs of students vary greatly, and that we should be open to accommodating the needs of the various areas of our population. So I believe that they all are important, but of course the public school is the most important because we take care of the majority of the children in our community.
Thank you. Next is going to be Monica Lee. What are your opinions on charter schools and school vouchers?
Okay, well, now I'm going to get myself in trouble, I'm sure. I am against charter schools. I think we should focus our money and our energies on making our public schools the best schools that we possibly can, so that parents don't feel the need to take their children to charter schools. I think if we make our public schools strong, then parents won't feel the need for a charter school, unless maybe it's like a specialized school, like a school for the arts or an advanced science school, something like that. I'm strongly opposed to school vouchers. I think parents have the right to make a decision whether they want to put their kids in public school or private school. If they want to put their kids in private school, the public shouldn't have to subsidize it by giving a voucher that lets them take their kid out of the public school. I think we should keep our monies in the public schools.
Great, thank you. Next is Christy. What are your opinions on charter schools and school vouchers?
I am against both, and that may also get me into trouble. I believe that in Castro Valley we already have excellent schools. As a more global issue, that is a different question. In Castro Valley, we have good schools, and so there isn't a need for vouchers or charter schools, in my opinion. I think that they both undermine the education for all children. There is a lot of data and information that shows what happens when charter schools in successful districts are implemented, and how it impacts all of our children, and it typically impacts our at-risk children.
Next is Dolly Adams. What are your opinions on charter schools and school vouchers?
So this question I think is easy really for me. I am not for charter schools, particularly in the Castro Valley schools, because they're so good. Vouchers also would be a problem because people, that would be public money that is taken away from the public schools and then spent on private schools. The reason for, you could see in Oakland, they have many charter schools, and the Oakland schools have been taken over by the state because they can't even pay their bills. And a lot of that is because of the way their schools are now structured with the charter schools. I have a friend who is an Oakland Unified teacher, and they have declining enrollment, and the kids that are still in the public schools are by and large ESL and special ed kids, while the higher performing students are siphoned off, so to speak, to the charter school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sarah. What are your opinions on charter schools and school vouchers?
Well, Mike's opinion, which I share, is that a hard no on charter schools and on vouchers for schools. This is a direct funneling of public resources away from public schools and into private settings. And it's really not an acceptable solution to any issues that our schools may be facing. I believe Mike would agree with the others who have said that the Castro Valley schools really are quite good, but I don't think that would change his opinion on this particular issue. I invite everyone again to take a look at our website, kuziakforcastrovalley.com, where he does address the issue of fixing funding for our public schools. I also just want to point out that Mike has been endorsed by several state level elected officials who have a lot of sway over funding and who know him personally and have worked on him on other funding issues that would affect people throughout the state. And this is an issue that's really near and dear to him. So again, I'm sure he would like personally to talk with you about this other than me.
Lastly is Lavender. What are your opinions on charter schools and school vouchers?
I'm definitely not I do not approve of sending money away to charter schools or for school vouchers. It shows that it takes away from students, which are on average lower socioeconomic class. And my husband went to public schools, I went to public schools, my daughter went to public schools. I am a proponent of keeping money within public schools. Thank you.
Thank you. So would anybody like to add on? If not, we'll move on to the next question. I think all has been said.
Awesome. So the next question we have for you guys is, the CVSD sites are off limits even though classes are not in session. Do you believe that kids and families should be able to use sites such as the school tracks, tennis courts, and ball fields? First up, we have Monica Lee.
This is one of those questions that I have mixed feelings about, because on the one hand, I mean, we're all taxpayers. We paid to have the fields put in, we paid to have the track put in. So people want access to them. On the flip side of that, I'm also a lawyer. So if you open up everything, inevitably somebody's going to fall, a kid's going to get hurt, something's going to happen, and then the school district's going to get sued. Hopefully, before this is all over, maybe we can come up with some kind of compromise so that we could open up a fields or a few fields and people can have access to them. I think the problem is that COVID hit so fast and we had to react so quickly that kind of thinking or resolution is kind of down the track in terms of we want to get kids educated, make sure they're fed first, and worry about recreation second.
Awesome. Next up, we have Christy. Do you believe that kids and families should have access to CVUSD sites?
Yes. I believe that we have a shortage of parks and outdoor spaces in Castro Valley. And I believe that it's important in these trying financial times that we look to other agencies within our community to partner with to help support our school campuses and our outdoor spaces. I think that with the COVID, that does bring in some additional challenges, but I do believe that it's important that children and families have access to outdoor spaces.
Next up, we have Dolly. Do you believe that kids and families should have access to CVUSD sites?
I definitely believe that children and families need access to these sites. I mean, everybody is stuck indoors right now because of the pandemic, and the places that you are allowed to be are outside, where it is at least somewhat safer if you can keep a distance of 6 feet and wear masks. So kids need to get out of the house and not just be on electronic devices all day. I understand that maintenance is not being performed on a lot of these fields. And we know kids will jump the fence and they're in those fields anyway. So I think there's a liability for the school in any case. Might as well cut the grass and let the kids be on the fields. We have insurance for that, right? I mean, not that we want any more lawsuits, certainly not, but we do have insurance for somebody getting injured on those fields. And I believe that they should be opened up, particularly now that we have this longstanding pandemic going on in our town. Thank you.
Next, we have Sarah. Do you believe that, does Mike believe that kids and families should be able to use CVUSD sites?
I think if Mike were here, he would be sharing his belief that access is really important, which it is. We have a lot of families and kids in Castro Valley who don't live in a house with a yard, for instance. And, we need to get them outside and a place to go. Just checking my notes. If we could use those facilities, that would be a really big gift to those families. I also just wanted to share that CVUSD and HARD have worked together in the past to make access to recreational facilities available after hours, for instance. Mike has an endorsement from current HARD board member, for instance, Rick Hatcher, and has that relationship to hopefully help with such issues in the future.
Thank you. Next, we have Lavender. Do you believe that CVUSD sites should be open when classes are not in session?
So this one for me, I really want families to have an outdoor space. I think that it's very important for our social and emotional wellness to be able to do that. I really appreciate, East Bay Parks and Hayward Area Recreation District and what's available for us now. I think my biggest concern right now is how do we ensure that there's no transmission of COVID-19? That's my biggest concern. I think that hopefully as we move through this pandemic, we'll be able to find opportunities to allow more spaces. I know during normal times, we extend hours so that the community can have more access, because we do agree with it, and I agree with more access. It's just, how do we figure out doing that in a way that will protect people from COVID-19? Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, we have Sharon Parker. Do you believe the kids and families should be able to use CVUSD sites even though classes are not in session? Sharon, I don't think we can see your, I think you also have to unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Yes, I am in favor of the facilities being available during off-school hours. And I feel it's really important for the children to be able to get out, and also for the parents. And I think that we should trust the parents to be responsible, for their children and for others. And I'm wholly in agreement that these facilities be made open. I think it's very important for emotional as well as physical health.
Thank you. Now we're going to go on to the discussion portion. If anyone wants to add on, just raise your virtual hand. I see Monica Lee has her hand raised.
I just want to be clear. It's not that I object, and I don't think that we all need something. We all need to get out of the house and exercise. It's just, we need to figure out how to let people use the field safely. And you can't just say, oh, we've got insurance, we don't have to worry about lawsuits, because too many lawsuits and your insurance gets canceled. So I think, it's something that I certainly have no problem bringing up to the superintendent and bringing up to the board, and hopefully maybe we can come up with a solution.
Thank you. Christy, I see you have your hand raised.
My understanding is that we have opportunities to pair with other agencies within our community to help facilitate the use of those spaces and the development and maintenance of those. And I am a strong proponent that in these trying financial times, that we really look to how we can make the best out of a bad situation, and how we can use other agencies to help support our grounds.
Well, next we have Dolly Adams.
Oh, so I just wanted to clarify. I didn't mean to imply that, it should be the Wild West on the, the ball fields that are run by the school district, and we should be willy-nilly just, using the insurance, in case everybody is on the fields and falls down or gets COVID. That's definitely not what I mean. But I do think that we need to have the maximum amount of access that is feasible, because people and kids and their families really need to get outdoors, particularly while we are dealing with this horrible pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone has anything, Sarah, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sorry. I just very quickly, I think that this brings up a bigger issue than just about, COVID and what are we doing in the next, several months. And, you know, that question is really about planning and how does the school board and the school district play into what the community as a whole offers to the community. Mike is really interested in this sort of question and issue, and I really wish he was here to share more with you about that idea. But the question really is about, you know, what is available to our community and what makes our community strong.
Thank you. If no one has any more things they want to add on, I can pass it on to May for the next question.
Hey, thank you, Helena. Okay, so this next question is from a Cache Valley Unified School District student, and they ask, how will you increase transparency as a school board member? And I think first up is Christy.
I think transparency is one of my priorities in looking towards being a participant on the school board. I think that there needs to be transparency within to the staff and to the public and to the parents in general. And I don't know at this point if that's always the case, or at least the perception is that there may be some transparency issues. And so I believe that it's important that that when we're making financial decisions, that we're disclosing all of what we're doing with those financial decisions. And I believe that what we want to do is to have the least negative impact on our students when making those kinds of decisions. And thank you.
All right, next up is Dolly, and you're answering what you think, how do we improve transparency?
So there's a number of different ways that you can improve transparency. There's some parts of the school board, let's say you're talking about personnel decisions, or, you know, somebody, you know, did something inappropriate. Those things cannot just be out in the public. Those are issues that have to be dealt with the school board and the superintendent and various people who are involved in that. But one thing that I know that Castro Valley School Board could do, that I'm on the Castro Valley MAC, and every single meeting that we have is recorded and then is made available for people to watch, because not everybody is available when a meeting is happening. And I think that they should be recorded, and the school board meeting should be recorded. It's not fun to be recorded and have your every little be recorded, but it's good for transparency and to allow the public to watch the goings on of the school board. I would be for that.
Okay, next is Sarah, and how we can increase transparency.
I believe that Mike would share with you that the best way to increase transparency with what's going on the school board is to encourage more public participation in what's happening at school board meetings. I believe that he would tell you that he would want to engage in more conversation with the public, and make it easier for the public to participate by increasing the access to the meetings, whether that be by the time of day that they're held, or whether they're held in person, or do we continue to hold them in this virtual manner. I mean, one of the most amazing things that's happened in the last several months is that we've had up to close to 1,000 people attending school board meetings, in large part because of organization by Mike, to have people come and speak and share their opinions on what might happen for this coming school year. That sort of thing needs to continue, and it needs to be encouraged in order to have a robust, transparent board process.
Okay, next up is Lavender, on how we can increase transparency.
So I think the important thing is making sure that everybody has a seat at the table. And what we do at the district, and what we've tried to increase over the last few years, is, you know, we post our meetings in the paper, we email parents, we have the Community Alliance, we each go to a PTA meeting. We try to spread that information as much as possible with what we have. And we've also spread around, how do we look at our budget? Now, what we've seen with COVID and having our meetings virtually is that there's more participation. And I'd like to continue having virtual meetings and opening up that space. I mean, we talk about the budget and we have special board meetings, and we've had meetings where no one shows up. And so providing further access, we also post on social media. So I really feel that it's important that we continue to, do virtual meetings and live stream our meetings for more access across. Thank you.
All right, okay, next up is Sharon on how we can increase transparency.
Let's see. Okay. All right. Well, I really think that the access that we have now virtually is really good, as was stated just before me. But I attended one of the school board meetings and I was really impressed with the student school board member. There are student school board members that are elected to come, and they relay information about the school. This is high school. And I was just really impressed. So I just would like to see more of that, and more information being able to be given to the school board, and more opportunity for parents and students to give their opinions about things that are happening in the school, things that affect them. More interaction, I think, would be really, really important for transparency.
Okay, next up is Monica on how we can increase transparency.
I think this is really important to the members of the school board. We really do try to be transparent. The superintendent, especially for the COVID related issues, keeps an FAQ running to answer questions. We try and post on the website. We do have I think it's interesting that this question came from a student, and I think that's really great. We do have a student board member from the high school. We've always had one, at least since I've been on the board, and they're really great. As a matter of fact, the reason finals are now before Christmas is because a student board member a few years ago did a survey, and he was the impetus for getting that done. It may be that we do try and keep the virtual meetings. I think the hard part for us is going to be, we're going to take some hits to our budget, and it's going to be the cost, but it's definitely something we should look into, because we have had really good participation in our virtual meetings.
Okay, awesome. And now we move on to our discussion portion of this topic. If anyone wants to agree or disagree on how we can increase transparency. I'm not seeing any hands. Give them a few more seconds. Okay, Marissa's gonna ask our last question.
Okay, so for our final question, starting with Dolly Adams, will be, do you believe that there are any lessons learned from the recent parcel tax failure? Go ahead. Dolly Adams.
Sure. I worked on Measure I and knocked on doors and made phone calls. I was there with two different groups that I belong to, making the phone calls, Redwood High and another group that I'm on the executive board of. And many people, really a lot of people, and some of the people who are here were also out there knocking on doors and making phone calls. I saw them, and we really tried very hard, and it's close. It almost made it. A little more effort, maybe it could have, and we would have had the Measure I, half of which would have gone to teachers' salaries. So the teachers were really pro for that. I think we do know that some people in Castro Valley are very fiscally conservative, And it's can be very difficult to just get over that. Some people were also worried about how we spent the Measure G funds, and maybe that's why they didn't vote for it. And we should have talked that up. Thank you.
So next is Sarah Raymond. Do you believe that does Mike believe there are any lessons learned from the recent parcel tax failure?
So as I'm sure all the candidates are aware, and possibly most of the people watching, this is something that Mike was very much involved in with Measure I. He was very involved with it from inception all the way through, and it was a tough loss. I have to say. In talking about it with people since that vote took place, I think that what he has heard, and one of the lessons is that, like we were talking about with the last question, transparency. People really want to know where their money is going with the district. They're not seeing the services that they think that they're supposed to be getting, especially, for instance, special ed families have had a lot of complaints in that department. And they want to know how it's being spent. So again, this is kind of a transparency question, more information about how money is being used, what the money would have been used for. And so going forward, more conversation, more discussion is really what's going to be key.
So Lavender, what do you believe there are any lessons learned from the recent parcel tax failure?
Yeah, so I was part of the original group from the school board, which created the Revenue Enhancement Committee, which was looking at funding from all different sides, whether that's legislative, corporate, to other funding. And from that group and community members from that group, they asked for the board to go out for a parcel tax. And what I was on that committee, and I helped push for that, and I believed in it. I think that, it's very hard to understand school financing. And I think that as we continue to go forward, we can continue to make that clearer to the community. And in addition, a lot of people don't know the difference between a bond and a parcel. And I think we can continue, if we ever do it again, we'll have to make that pretty clear so that people know where their money's being spent. We just passed a bond a few years ago that we're working, Measure G, that is being implemented now. And I think the appetite, looking at the data, it looked like it was there with the survey results, but it ended up that we didn't win. And I'm so thankful to all of our teachers and all the community that helped us. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on is Sharon Parker. Do you believe that there are any lessons learned from the recent parcel tax failure?
Well, I really agree with our previous sharers that I think the majority of people, they're concerned that their tax dollars will be used for its designated purpose. And, I don't think that it's made clear or the transparency is enough so that they can be assured that what they're voting on will see that that money is going where it is needed. And I think transparency, however we can make the information more transparent to the public will be of great help in any other initiatives that are sent forth.
Thanks. Monica, what are your thoughts on the recent parcel tax failure?
Well, I worked on it. I think most of us worked on the parcel tax. I think from talking to some of my neighbors and going door to door, I think you could call it transparency. I tend to think of it more as a public relations issue. We don't toot our own horn enough. I talked to one of my neighbors and he's like, well, I voted for Measure G and you guys haven't done anything with it. And it's like the HVAC in the schools is all really old. And I'm like, we've done the HVAC systems, the heating and ventilation and air conditioning systems in the schools. We've been working on that, but that's not something people see. So
Right.
you really have to educate them and let them know that that kind of work has been done. So I think that was probably, in addition to the high threshold, which is always going to be there, I think, you know, you can call it transparency, you can call it public relations. That's something we'll have to work on if we ever go out for another parcel tax.
Lastly, will be Monica Lee. What do you believe in the recent parcel tax failure?
I just went.
Sorry, Christy Wowerts.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have several challenges when looking at getting additional funding sources within our community when we only have 30% of our population that has school-aged children. So to get something passed can be very challenging. I think that there needs to be clarity in to the community what the difference between a bond and a parcel tax is and where those funds go. I also think that there are from my neighbors and community people, I've heard that people are really concerned about how the money was spent on the bond measure, and they're concerned that their concern was that if they can agree to the parcel tax, that it may not get managed the way that they had expected.
Thank you. Would anybody like to comment on that? Sarah?
Thank you. So I just wanted to kind of dovetail on comments that were made by Lavender and by Monica with respect to whether or not people understood what difference between bond and parcel and school funding being very complicated and this being a public relations issue. You know, through all of this, Mike came to Measure I because he really appreciates our teachers and really appreciates what they do for our kids and communities. And he's formed so many incredible relationships with teachers in the district, both before, through, and following Measure I, and he's gotten individual endorsements from many teachers, and CBTA as well has endorsed. And he wants to continue that sort of community conversation about the value of teaching in our community.
I see Lavender would like to add on. Go ahead.
I would like to invite the community members out there, if you would like to know what we've done with Measure G, please come to a meeting. We post on Facebook, we post on our website, and we post in the local paper. So if you'd like to hear more about Measure G and what we're spending our money on, we'd love to have you at one of our meetings. Thank you.
Monica, go ahead.
And there is also a Citizens Measure G Oversight Committee that oversees all our spending on Measure G. They have meetings that I'm sure are open to the public. Go to one of their meetings, because then you can know what we're spending it on. And part of the problem, a lot of what we're spending it on is things like wiring and heating systems and that kind of thing. It's not things that you can see, but please feel free, you know, to check with us, check with the Oversight Committee, because we want people to know what their money's being used for.
Dolly?
So some other things about Measure G really are, I know at Redwood High School, there's nothing that you could point to that you would see of what Measure G did. However, as they said, those HVAC systems, there was, you know, air conditioning in the room finally. So when it's 95 degrees, students weren't sweating in the room and could actually stay inside and learn. The other things is there's been a lot of improvement of wire connectivity for computers, and so that you can have better Wi-Fi. And those are some of the things you can't see, but that were done by Measure G. Thank you.
Okay, if that's all for now, I think it's time to wrap up. So,
all right, so now we're going to give everyone an opportunity to make your final statement, your closing statements. And for this, we'll give you a minute. And we're going to start with Dolly on your closing statements whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I had like a 3-minute speech, so I'm going to kind of do the beginning and the end of it, so it may seem a little jilted there. Many of you may know me as a teacher, a community activist, a mother, a friend. So what I mention will not really be necessarily new to you. I'm a candidate for Castro Valley School Board because of my deep commitment to the children of Castro Valley and their families. I've had the honor to serve the Castro Valley community as a public school teacher for 21 years, and nearby Hayward and San Ramon, as well as right now in San Leandro Unified School District for an additional 8 years. My community activism has brightened my life, and I hope others as well. I've been very active in local politics for the past 24 years and have lived in Castro Valley for 30. I've worked in with the Castro Valley Teachers Association for the past 6 years as the site rep, then as a member at large on the executive board. We have supported Measure G, Measure I, and the Schools and Communities First, known as Proposition 15. I moved to Castro Valley because of the schools. Then I worked for Castro Valley Unified because of their great reputation. And now I would like to shape policy for the schools that make Castro Valley a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolly. Next up is Sarah Raymond.
Okay, everyone on Mike's team really wishes that he could have been here himself tonight. Losing his mother very suddenly was very painful for him, but it also caused him to reflect on why he entered this race in the first place. Mike has shared very publicly that he grew up with a lot of challenges. Both poverty and housing instability caused him to move a lot as a child, and school is a place where he got grounded. It's a place where he found community, where his family found support, and it gave him resiliency as he grew up. Mike wants kids in Castro Valley to have the same experiences of their school: support, grounding, community, personal resiliency, and resiliency for Castro Valley. Please join me in supporting Mike's campaign. He's received endorsements of teachers all over Castro Valley, labor unions, and many of our elected officials, including State Controller Betty Gee and Congressman Eric Swalwell. Please visit our website and follow us on social media to learn more about Mike and how you can help us get out the vote. The website again is kuziakforcastrovalley.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Next is Lavender Lee.
Thank you, May. First, I wanted to thank the Sunshine American Youth Organization for holding this debate. You all are mostly 15-year-old high school students, so I want to thank you. And don't worry, we all have technical difficulties in the era of COVID, working from home. Secondly, I wanted to thank Sarah for stepping in for Mike. I want to send my condolences, deepest condolences for him and his time of sorrow. Wish he was here, but we're really thankful that you were able to step in his stead. And I just wanted to thank the community, and I'm hoping you'll re-elect me. I've been endorsed by Bill Quirk, CVTA, which I'm very thankful for, South Alameda Young Democrats, not finalized, but on the consent calendar for the Alameda County Democratic Party. Our current board members, Dot, Gary, Monica, and then Mike and Dolly, and I'm hoping to increase our diversity and inclusion, our transparency, have smart financial decisions based on science, and helping our kids succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Lavender. Next up is Sharon Parker.
Okay, am I on here? Okay. I'm sorry, am I unmuted?
Yeah, and I've asked to start your video.
Oh, okay. My goal is to work with other school board members to foster an environment of.
Sorry, I'm going to pause you for a moment. We still can't see you, so can you turn your camera on?
Okay, I'm trying to. Let's see. Okay.
There you go.
Is it on now?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Okay, so my goal is to work with the other school board members to foster an environment of inclusivity in our Castro Valley Public Schools and to strive to meet the scholastic, cultural, and emotional needs of our children so they can excel to their highest potential. I will also work with the board members to see that every tax dollar will be used for its designated purpose. I have been privileged to be a part of this community where children are considered its highest priority. And I believe our schools play a major role in producing productive citizens for our future. That's why I have been motivated to run as a candidate for the Castro Valley School Board.
Thank you, Sharon. Next is Monica Lee.
I'd like to thank you guys for inviting me to participate tonight and appreciate the efforts that went into this. And I'd like to thank the community for joining us this evening and hearing all the candidates out. I've been a 20-year resident of Castro Valley. I've been on the board 3.5 years. I'm up for re-election. It has been my privilege to serve the students and families of Castro Valley. I've worked hard with the other board members to balance the budget, try and provide the best education possible for our students. We tried to react quickly within the COVID, make sure students still got fed, got the Chromebooks and equipment they needed. I've been endorsed, I think most of us have been endorsed by Bill Quirk, CVTA, my fellow board members, which I think my fellow board members endorsing it tells you that I'm a hard worker, I get along with people, and that I can work, that we all work well together. I would appreciate my children went to Castro Valley schools, and I would appreciate your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. And last but not least, Christy Ruiz.
Hi, thank you. I believe in lifelong learning. I am a teacher and I'm in striving to improve in whatever area you choose. I'm committed to making the district better for all of our students and teachers. I'm not a career politician and I have no aspirations for higher political office. We need at this time for people to step up and support our community in any way they can. I may not know all the answers to the question, all the answers to questions, but I know the questions to ask because of my experience. Castro Valley has been an integral part of my professional career, and I look forward to being on the school board to continue that. I'd like you to go to my website if you want more information, which is at it's at Christy for cvschools.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and watching this event today. First, can everyone please turn your cameras on so we can all see your beautiful faces? And hopefully those of you watching, you take some pictures of us all smiling. And I'm gonna turn on your video, Sharon.
I'm trying.
Okay.
It's not coming on. What happened? Let's see. Why won't it come on? The host has, let's see. Okay. Oops, now it's on.
All right, there we go. Thank you all for being part of our debate.
Thank you.
I think Marissa, you have a few words. I think you're muted.
Thanks. We'd like to thank Oliver Zhang and for connecting us with community leaders, and thank you for the guidance you received from Eden Area League of Women Voters from President Joe Loss and their chairman Linda Foster, as well as Director of Equity and Inclusion Jeremiah Jackson for giving us advice on how to run this debate successfully and suggestions on how to improve our plans. Thank you, Amy Sayer, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent, for helping us to reach out to candidates. We received a lot of support and guidance from local leaders, and we are very grateful for the help.
We would also like to thank you guys all, Dolly Adams, Christy Duman, Sarah Raymond for filling in for Mike Kusiak, Monica Lee, Sharon Parker, and Lavender Lee Whittaker for addressing these important topics and for sharing your own ideas. I think I can speak for all of us that we have learned so much from today's debate. We would also like to thank our planning committee, Bryce Dung, for staying here and doing the virtual backgrounds. Porter and Hudson Tien, they're not here today, but they helped us a lot on outreach and questions. Maya Wong for setting up the timer, Ellie Wong for setting up this YouTube live stream, and for all of their hard work helping us for making flyers. For all of their hard work.
And finally, I want to thank Helena and Marissa. Thank you guys for sticking with me through this, I think, 2-month journey of planning these events. I know we had some really great days, but also a lot of late nights. I'm like staying up till 12 trying to figure out logistics. Thank you guys for doing this with me. And I really, truly don't think this would have happened without you guys, Helena and Marissa. And of course, thank you all for coming to our 2020 Castro Valley Unified School District Board of Education Debate Part 2. We really do appreciate your interest in these important issues. I know I personally learned so much about your positions and the candidates. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email us at senshinamericayo@gmail.com. And if you'd like to join our youth organization, please fill out this form, tinyurl/join Senshin America. Thank you all for watching, and bye.
Thank you.